Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of BIM After Dark Live. I want to thank you for joining me. Today is an extremely special episode and day. This is actually episode number 20. I started this broadcast at the beginning of the pandemic, actually, so it's been quite a while, and I pretty much did it every single week since then. Although last week I apologize, I had to postpone the 20th episode because a little tropical storm came through the area and I was out of power for 7 days and out of internet for 9, which, as you guys can imagine, in this time and space right now, can be a pain in the butt, especially in Connecticut where we are in like the 90s, or this week's pretty nice, but last week we were in the 90s and humidity, and let's just say it wasn't a good time. So for those of you returning, thank you so much for returning. For those of you joining me for the first time, thanks for joining. This is sort of a weekly live session / video blog. Or video podcast. Not really sure what to call it, but it's a live show that I've been doing every week. And sometimes it's myself, sometimes I have guests, and really we just talk about all things Revit, BIM, and architecture / engineering and construction industry related. And so today is, because it's the 20th episode, I wanted to do something fun. And so we're going to do a few different things, but the first is there really is no topic for today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be checking the chat, and I'm going to be taking questions. It's an Ask Me Anything type of event, so anything's on the table. I don't have to answer everything, but I will take a look and answer some of the cool ones and some of the ones that I think would be valuable to everyone. I do have a few questions that people asked online that I could also go, or via email, that I could also go back to if you guys don't have any questions. I'm sure everyone has questions. And so make sure you say hi in the chat and ask your questions in the chat. Today I'm going to do something a little special too. You'll notice it's 12:30 Eastern time. Usually this is every Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. And so I thought it'd be kind of nice to do a double header today. So we might not go for an hour, depending on how many questions there are. Maybe it's 2 half-hour sessions, but I'm going to be doing this one right now at 12:30, and then I'm going to be doing one tonight at 7:30 p.m. So 2 back-to-back live sessions, Ask Me Anything, Q&A type of questions. The other thing I wanted to do too was I also wanted to make it a little fun. And so there's a couple things that I think will make it a little fun. The first is if I answer your question, or if I think it's a really good question, shoot me an email, jeff@TheRevitKid.com, and I will give you a special discount code for the BIM After Dark community, which is a learning platform and community that I created that has 4 full-length courses. It has social media style atmosphere where you can ask questions. I do private office hours, and you also have access to all the sample files from my tutorials. We're actually at 98 members right now. So what would be really cool is if by the end of today we broke the 100 member barrier. Would be pretty freaking sweet. So you can check that out if you're interested, regardless of whether you ask a question, at community.bimafterdark.com. And so let me just check that in there here. community.bimafterdark.com. And I guess I should have put HTTP. Sorry about that. It's not a link. Oh well. So welcome everyone. Simcha, thanks for joining. Simcha is a member of the community. Awesome. Steven, John, Beth, everyone, thanks for joining. We got people from all over the place. California, Salt Lake City, Chile, oh cool, Bangladesh, nice. So I'm hoping that this time frame can allow a few other people to be here live that maybe couldn't at the 7:30 time frame. So with that, start asking questions, whatever's on your mind. Revit or non-Revit related, whatever, let's have some fun. Ask in the chat box and I'll start reading them. And yeah, I guess to just sort of, I think Simcha asked me to give some guitar lessons. Maybe tonight I'll tune up the guitar beforehand and I'll do a little something. We'll see. Everyone always asks about that. Paris, France, awesome. I was hoping one of the hopes was by doing this at 12:30 that some of you out over the pond over there in Europe would be able to watch us live. I know you guys always email me and say, hey, I couldn't watch you live because it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, so understandable. Ruth asked a non-Revit related. Non-Revit is awesome too. I'm good with those questions. How many instruments do you play? I only play guitar. I mean, I could play the bass. I could hold a beat on the drums, but I wouldn't say I'm a drummer. And then I played a teeny bit of piano, but mostly just guitar. I've actually been playing guitar since 3rd grade or 2nd grade. So I've been playing guitar for quite some time now. And yeah, it's just been my thing. So unfortunately, not a musical savant where I play 1,000 different instruments. I've kind of focused on that, dug in and focused on that one. So thanks for the question, Ruth. Shoot me an email if you want to take advantage of a discount membership at BIM After Dark community. I apologize. I was trying to shove lunch down my throat too before this. It's lunchtime here, obviously, in Connecticut, and of course, as it is the moment we live in, I've been on Zoom meetings all day, and there was one that ended like right at 12. So here we are. Let's see here. Ruth is a member. I knew you were a member, Ruth. I had a feeling. It said Ruth T. I couldn't actually read that there. Bilal asks when I will change the channel name to the RevitKid, from the RevitKid to the RevitMan. That's a good question. Yes, it's true. I am no longer a kid. When I started this blog, started the RevitKid blog and this channel. It was 2009, and so it's been quite some time now. It's been 11 years, right? Or what is it? 2020. Yeah. So yes, I am obviously 11 years older, but in the grand scheme of things, the whole reason why I called it the RevitKid at the time was that most of those creating content like I was were older than me, and so I was a kid in that group, and so I guess technically I'm still a kid in that group because they're also 11 years older. I don't know. But now I have my son who's a kid, so I can always say he's the RevitKid, right? So we got some questions coming in. Thank you so much, guys. So cool. Jeremy's asking a question about recap. So apparently Autodesk Recap will no longer be available for mobile devices. And do I have any experience with Cyclone for gathering scan data? No, unfortunately I don't. I've used Recap plenty of times. I can't say I've used Cyclone. My experience with point clouds has been less on the actual production of the point clouds and scanning and more on using them. I have seen and understand the process, been there when the scans were happening, but I haven't actually had to do a scan myself. I don't have a scanner, and so I've worked with companies who do the scanning, and then obviously I'm working with the point clouds afterwards quite a bit. So that's my big experience with that. Maybe, and also feel free, for those of you who may have some answers that I can't answer in the chat, feel free to reach out. If you guys are familiar with Cyclone and have some input for Jeremy, go ahead and shoot in there. I love the non-Revit questions. This is pretty cool. So, Mahir, I'm sorry if I'm butchering any of your names. I know some people have usernames, some people have real names on here, but Mahir asked, said that in my older videos, I mentioned I played video games occasionally, and so which has been your interest lately? So, yes, I'm the product of the video game generation, so I've played plenty of video games in my life. Ever since having my son, I haven't played nearly as many. So I can't say recently. Recently, it was probably, maybe 2 years, maybe a year and a half is the last time I actually sat down and really played sort of on my own, other than maybe some party style events. And so I've always been a first person shooter guy. I've always been a computer gaming guy. Not to say I haven't played. I would say my Xbox, most of my Xbox experience has been with FIFA. I was diehard. I played a lot of FIFA, and and then some Call of Duty and stuff on the Xbox. But huge fan of Counter-Strike, the Battlefields, and Team Fortress. Those are kind of my three favorites, with some select here and there. So the last video game I actually played was probably, I could probably pull up Steam and look, but it was probably Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Let's see. Oh wow, we got a lot of questions coming here. Sweet. Also, there is a little bit of a delay between what I say and what you see, so so just bear with me here. What is the weirdest family you have ever had to make? That's a good question, actually. The weirdest Revit family that I've ever had to make. I've made a few unique ones for some museums in the past. One kind of recently, which was kind of like probably the beginning of this year, towards Christmas of last year, so December-ish. I did make a string of Christmas light bulbs, and I know it's not a weird object, but it was kind of an interesting feat to attack there. I'm trying to think. There's a few that are coming to mind. I can see the shapes, but I don't remember what they're for. But usually it has to do with some weird random existing condition, or maybe some sort of funky existing condition, and trying to tweak it and make it work. Some of my designs in the past, especially in the schoolwork, obviously made some really strange families. So good question. I'll think about that one, and I'm sure something else will pop in my mind. But Scour, nice to see you, by the way. Scour's been here pretty much every week since, which is pretty sweet. Mario, welcome from Argentina. What's up? How you doing, man? Jason. Oh, here we go. Justin Harris asked, how helpful would your BIM After Dark series be for Revit MEP and Electrical? So the BIM After Dark series, I mean, it's no surprise that most of my content is focused on architecture because I am an architect. And there is, in the BIM After Dark series currently, there is no specific MEP content. However, the volume 2 of the series, which is creating, it's called BIM Can Make Paper, and so it's about documentation. Most of that can be pretty consistent across platforms, how to make sheets, schedules, tagging, all that good stuff. And then obviously Dynamo, the DIY Dynamo course, could definitely be related to anything. I would say volume 1 is very specific on presentations and presentation techniques. So the reality is, I guess, you're not doing a ton of presentation techniques as an MEP engineer, so to speak. But then also volume 3 is all about family creation. And so I may not I think we've created a light fixture in it, so I guess that's related to electrical. And then, it's the basics, from basics to the very advanced family creation. So I guess the reality is 2, 3, and Dynamo. So 3 out of the 4 you can definitely take information from. None of them are specifically geared towards MEP, and that's just the nature of myself and my experience. I do know how to obviously use Revit MEP, and if you're extreme beginner in Revit MEP and want to just learn a little bit about it, there is a tutorial. One of the episodes actually I did. Let me actually type this here. So if you go to live.bimafterdark.com, it'll show all the current and previous episodes of this show, and I did a little session on creating MEP for architects, so kind of a really basic piece of that. Man, look at all these questions coming. You guys are awesome. Remember, if I do ask your question or answer your question here, shoot me an email, and I'll give you a link to a discounted rate to become a member of BIM After Dark. So Jason asked, how do you model rain screen cladding such as ACM panel, fiber cement, etc.? So I do have a bunch of tutorials on that, but because we're live, I can show you a quick tip on it, and then I'll post a couple links. But rain screen, if the goal is to model it as it's built, which I hope you guys would try to do no matter what, then I have a couple techniques. Let me look for this one tutorial for you guys. And I'll post it in there, and then I'll also show you it. So I had a project where I used it's called a slat. I called it a slat wall, and again, remember, this is going to be posted a little behind, and also all the links that I post on here will be on the blog post tomorrow morning and on the description of the video as we go along. So let me jump over to my camera and screen here. Hello. So my typical technique for, whoa, that's really bright. My typical technique for Revit is just screaming at me right now. Sorry, let me try and lower the brightness here a little bit. For modeling things like rain screens and anything that really has sort of gaps in it, for example, really your best bet is to utilize curtain walls for that. And it seems goofy because if you're new to Revit, you hear the word curtain wall, you're thinking curtain wall, you're thinking glass, tall buildings, etc. But really the curtain wall tool is just called the curtain wall tool, but it can be used for dozens and dozens of other things. So what I'm going to do in here is I just created a quick new project, and I'm going to use curtain wall 1 as my example. I'm just going to draw this curtain wall. The nice thing about curtain wall is that it really, it can be used to make curtain walls like you're all thinking, right? But it really, the value behind it is that it's a wall family that you can host grids and other walls inside. And so a perfect example is, this is a wall, right? What I can do is I can actually, instead of using glass, right, if I go to my edit types, I can actually make my curtain panel a wall type, right? So I can actually go in, and this is not necessarily answering your question, but I do like to show some of the things that you can do with curtain walls. you could see I'm actually, my curtain wall is now an 8-inch CMU wall, right? But the benefit here is that I can add grids, right? And I can manipulate those grids. I can change the wall types within the grids. And I can also add mullions and manipulate mullions. So I can use the inside or the outside of the grid to do things. Now, CMU wall is probably not the best example. There's not much you're going to do here, other than I guess if you were to put, if you really wanted to, you could put some mullions in there. So if you wanted to make a reveal or something like that, right, you can. And actually, a little tease, next week, Aaron Mahler is going to be on again. And we're going to talk about filters. And so, one thing you can do is you can filter out these curtain panels, or these curtain mullions, and use them. Or right now, for the sake of time, I'm just going to select them all and hide them just for fun. Right, and so now you can see I made a CMU wall that has spaces in between it, but it's parametric, right? So I can go like this, I can go like that, I can move it around, right? Or I can make the spacing what it is. But the other thing you can do with curtain walls is, if I was to draw this curtain wall, let's say, you also can use an empty system panel. So you don't need a wall within the panel part. So then you can use the opposite. You can use it as a gridded system of something, whether it's wood slats or what you're talking about, rain screens, and you can use it for that. So example, if I go here and I say I want my system panel to be empty, so there's one called empty system panel, and click apply. Right, now I just have this open grid, and I can go in and I can say I only want it to have a horizontal layout. So I'm going to get rid of my verticals, and I'm going to do a fixed distance of 1 foot for the horizontal. Click OK. And now, oh, I didn't get rid of my verticals. Try that again. Fixed distance, horizontal. Oh, that's all right. So now what you can see is now I'm starting to make, these, like this could be a rain screen, or this one could be the rain screen, right? So to me, that's how I would approach it. Any of those sort of gridded models that have to be some sort of reveals in between, pulled away, and there's different ways you can utilize the space in between. But yeah, and there are a ton of tutorials. Did I post it? I did post it there, right? So just search on TheRevitKid.com, or just search. I do have a couple. I have a wood slat wall one. I think I recently talked about board and batten. So there's different ways to use curtain wall. But I would say curtain wall is your best approach to it. I just wanted to show you. It's kind of cool the before or the using the panels to produce what you want, or using the mullions to produce what you want. But it doesn't always have to be a glass curtain wall. It's just a tool. It's called a curtain wall. Okay. All right, I see a whole bunch of things coming in, so let me roll back and look. Man, you guys are awesome. You guys are super engaged right now. Let's see. Wow, I'm way behind. I apologize, guys. Is there a way to... How do you model rain screen? Oh, there we go. That one. So CD asked if there's a way to control the height of a section view. I'm not really sure what you mean by that, so if you can clarify a little more. When you draw a section, you can just manipulate the region. Maybe that's what you're talking about. But maybe clarify that again, sorry. Jason just mentioned board and batten. Yeah, so if you look at my board and batten post from last week, and then the one I just linked in, which is called wood slat, and I'll put all the links afterwards, that'll start showing you the ideas of what I'm talking about here. So Saeed asked, actually, sorry, I just skipped over Ed, sorry. Ed asked about 3D view in PDF with orbit rotation. If you're going to make a 3D PDF, I think is what you're asking about, then you're going to have to use a plugin. For example, Bluebeam has one that exports to a 3D PDF. So if you want an interactive PDF from Revit, you're going to have to use some kind of a plugin. I don't know if Adobe has one, but I know for a fact that Bluebeam has one. And it works fine. The only thing I will tell you is that the orbiting and panning in Bluebeam is terrible. So Saeed is asking about dimensions, and it says we usually put dimension digits line between. We put a dimension digits between line, but in Revit they're not able to. I'm not sure what you mean by dimension digits. If you are talking about units, let me share my screen, because this is something that I show a lot of people, and they are pretty amazed and don't realize it exists, which is why I'm here, right? So if I have a bunch of little things here, one of the really cool things about Revit, and those of you that are CAD users can probably relate to view scales and annotation scales and all that good stuff. Revit is fully annotative, so it doesn't matter what scale your view is, everything's going to adjust to it, which is freaking phenomenal. But the other thing is it's also unit agnostic, basically. So what I mean by that is, if I was to, I just press DI on my keyboard. If I was to press DI on my keyboard and just do a string of dimensions here, right, there's my string of dimensions. There's a couple things I can do, right? This is obviously an imperial. If I go to UN on my keyboard, press UN, and I go to my project units, I can flip the entire global project units to meters, for example. Right? Cool, fine, whatever. But let's say I want to show both in my dimension. Okay, I want to show feet, but I also want to show meters. Well, I can actually add those to my dimension types. You can work in both, which is really cool. So if I go to Edit Types, and I scroll down, and you can see there's a little thing called alternate units, right? And I can say, yeah, I want to do alternate units, and I want to do it below, and it's in millimeters. I click OK, and look at that. Now I have millimeters here. The other thing that's really cool is if you're working in a project that is either or. So if I'm working in this project and I want to move this wall 3 feet, right? I copy it, or I want to copy it 3 feet. I copy it, and I can type in 3 feet and press Enter, right? But if I'm working on the same project and I don't know what a foot is, because it's some stupid 16th imperial thing that Americans use, and I want to use millimeters, I can actually type 10 or 100 mm. And you can see it overlapped. I should probably do 1,000 because I'm a stupid American who doesn't know metric. 1,000 mm, and press Enter. You can actually type in dimensions in any unit format you want, which is super cool. So I don't know if that answered your question, Saeed. So if it did, let me know. But that was just something that came into mind. Wow, there's a ton of questions here, you guys. This is freaking awesome. I just rolled back to video games. Let's see. Here's your method. Simcha, thanks so much. Simcha just said, guys, if you're in the community, you get this kind of Q&A with me all the time. That's true. I am an active user in the community, for obviously, and so this just shows you the value of being able to chit chat back and forth. Justice, thanks for joining. She said, it said it was first time joining to the live session. Awesome. Asking a little bit about myself, and so if it is your first time here and you don't know who I am, thank you so much for joining. That is so cool. So my name is Jeff. I'm also, a lot of people know me as TheRevitKid. I have a blog at TheRevitKid.com, or you can tweet at me at TheRevitKid. I am a licensed and registered architect in the state of Connecticut. I've been practicing architecture since I was 16, so for 16 years. Actually, next week is my 32nd birthday, so 16 years. And 5 years ago, I left an architecture firm that I worked for after I got my license, and I've been working for Turner Construction for the last 5 years, as well as doing all the stuff that you see here and continuing to practice residential architecture on the side. So, little rundown on myself. So I do not work for any BIM companies. I work for a construction company, and I use BIM software. I am not a reseller or any of those things, and I do not work for Autodesk. Disclaimer. So thank you for joining me, Justice, and definitely check out all the content that I have on the website. If you want to see the rest of the episodes, definitely check them out. live.bimafterdark.com will get you there. If you have a video game world, what you built in Revit. Skyward asks kind of a question about a video game world in Revit. I'm not really sure what you're asking, Skyward, but the reality is the what I just mentioned before about video games, that does have a lot to do with where I am today. I did, as I mentioned before, the games that I used to play were Counter-Strike and Team Fortress and all those things, and those are on a platform called Valve, if you guys aren't familiar. And one of my favorite things to do was to build custom maps. And so anyone who's familiar with the sandbox and what existed in Valve, you actually had the ability to, it was kind of like a 3D Max looking program, and you could build environments. And now I'm using Twinmotion and Lumion and Enscape, and I mean the relationship is extremely close, and it's super cool, super fun. Let's see here, you guys. What are some ways? So Kyle asks, what are some ways on the MEP side you've found that make the biggest improvement in drawing appearance? So that's a good question. It's a question that I'll try and answer a couple different ways. The first is when it comes to drawing versus the model, right? There's a lot of things to think about. One of the things that I can't stand is when on the MEP side, an engineer modifies the way their models are drawn versus the way we built to make the drawings look correct. So a perfect example would be stacking of pipes, right? A lot of people will model 4 pipes side by side so that you can see them correctly in drawings, but then you're ignoring the fact that you can use those pipes to coordinate to make sure everything fits. I would say just as far as drawings look and aesthetics, there's a couple companies that I worked with in the past that I thought looked phenomenal, and honestly, and even with the architecture drawings, I do believe that adding shading and color, and then obviously if most of what we do is in PDF anyway, so you don't have to worry about printing. But if you are going to use shading and color, you have to use a good printer, right? So laser scanner or laser printers and all that good stuff. But to me, I personally believe that we should be moving on from drawings in general, right? I mean, we've gone down this road in different episodes, and I've gone down it with different people on different episodes. And so the fact that I believe that in general means that when it comes to the actual drawings, I do believe that they should be way more graphically pleasing. Like shadows and shading help explain something so much better than some of the other sort of orthographic sort of type of views. I do typically on my residential stuff, I put shading and colors and all kinds of stuff, and and it really helps. I mean, it helps pump everything up. But I will say, long story short, I worked with a couple companies, and they did that. They had shaded views, so the ducts had some nice sort of shading to them and different things, and those things were so easy to read. So easy. It's kind of like working in Revit when you turn on a shaded view, right? Tom's late. So Tom showed up late about 15 minutes ago. Tom, thanks for joining. It's all good, man. The replay will be there. Let's see here. Chris is asking, this is an interesting one. Do you know any way to display the text data from a single parameter as entered in one tag and as all caps in another tag? I don't know why you would want to do that. So you're saying if you type in a parameter in lowercase, you want a tag that shows in a lowercase and a tag that shows in an uppercase? That's kind of weird. I mean, I can think of ways to do that in Revit if need be. I'm just trying to figure out why you would need to do that. There's a couple. I apologize. I didn't put my phone on silent. There's a couple. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I fully understand the question. But I mean, off the top of my mind, you can definitely do it. There'd be 2 options. You'd have to manage 2 parameters. You can use Dynamo to pump it to another parameter. Or you can, I think you can make labels always uppercase. I think. Yeah. Let me chew on that one a little bit. That's an interesting question. David, thanks for joining. What do you think about Revit not differentiating between materials and finishes in the material editor? Not sure what that means. Materials and finishes differentiating. It does differentiate between the two. Yeah, I don't understand that question either, David. So if you can clarify it a little bit, please. I want to answer to my best ability. Joe, how's it going, Joe? Good to hear from you. You're saying that good way to show expansion joints. So I guess you're talking about the combo. I'm way behind. I can't believe how many questions you guys have. This is crazy. Aaron from Parallax. Yes, I'm sorry. I mentioned Justice was. There's a big delay, and I'm trying to catch up. Yeah, when I mentioned Aaron will be on next week. Aaron Mahler. He is from the Parallax team, and I've been wanting to talk about filters. And I've mentioned them on a couple episodes, and he mentioned them when he was on too. And and it came up again on our last office hour for the community, the idea of filters. And so I thought it'd be great to do an entire episode dedicated to filters. And I know if there's someone out there who's passionate about filters, more passionate about filters than me, then it's Aaron Mahler. So I asked him, and even though he's got a couple-week-old newborn at home, he was more than willing and excited to come on next week. So he'll be on the show next week, so check that out. Happy early birthday. Thank you so much. Let's see. You guys are flying. This is great. Alex asked, how do you change the diagonal dimension risk? I don't know if that's a typo. I'm not really sure what that means. So if you want to ask it again, let me know. I'm not sure what diagonal dimension risk means. And then Ruben asked about conduit junction boxes and connectors, and sorry man, I'm an architect, so I honestly, I could probably click around and figure out what you're talking about. But if you guys are out there, are electrical engineers, or familiar, really heavily familiar with the electrical side of Revit, then check out Ruben's question. He's asking about conduit connectors and junction boxes. Yeah, sorry man. I don't even want to attempt to do that live without me farting around for a little while first. Can you make the dimension? Oh, so so here we go. Here, happy early birthday. Thanks, you guys. How do you sketch a circular stair? How do you sketch a circular stair, huh? Well, I'm assuming you mean a spiral stair that continues, and it's tough. It's not. I shouldn't say it's tough. It's just you're gonna need. And there's a few really good blog posts out there about sketching a circular stair, and you know, the unfortunate piece is that what happens with stairs. If I go over to stairs, right? So you can use the circular tool, but you can only get to close itself. Right, so I just made a circular tool and closed itself. So if you need to continue closing yourself, or continue up, as you can see, this thing loops around here. You know, you have to use the circle tool, if that makes sense. So what I did there is I went to stairs, and there's one here for full step spiral. And I'm setting level 1, level 2, and it's going to continue the circle based on the level. So if I want to go offset to a level to 30 feet above the level, it's going to make the stair based on the radius you want to get to that level. So they've made it a little easier, but well, this one's going to be interesting looking. But you have to use this circle. There we go. You have to use this circle when you're sketching the stair. Okay, so if I went a little quick, but right here in the components, when you're drawing, you could do an arc, you could do a straight, and then you could also do a circle. So there's your spiral stairs. Sweet. Looks like Saeed was following up, or somebody was following up for Saeed about making dimensions show between the dimension lines. So let's go back. Actually, this is going to be fun. Let's see. So I'm going to get rid of the alternate dimensions on this guy. Where'd it go? Alternate off. Okay, now. Dimension style, string. So I think what you're asking is there a way to show them like that? I think. And I actually don't know. I've never actually tried to do that. I know you can turn the leader off if you wanted to. So for example, in here you can see, you could check off the leader here. And then you can put it wherever you want. But by default, I don't actually know if you can. If someone else out there does, let me know. I've never tried to do that. One thing that I will say when we're talking about these things is, one of my biggest pet peeves is people is trying to fit old CAD standards into BIM software, right? Because like that is such a non-important thing, right? I mean, really, the fact that your dimension line, and no offense to Saeed or anything, just this is a soapbox kind of thing. The fact that your dimension line is above or in the middle of a dimension is just so insignificant in the grand scheme of what you are doing using BIM software or in general, right? So to me, it was like back when you couldn't put filled dots in schedules. I remember like the firm I worked for, the guys were having like, conniptions because they couldn't put their dots in their schedules for their door schedule. Where like, yeah, you can use a Y or an X or something like that, and it was like, and like those are those things where it is so insignificant to the other benefits you are gaining from using BIM, right? Not to say that you can't do it. I'm assuming you might be able to. I just haven't, I can't remember if there's any way. Text offset, maybe put it to 0. Let's see. No, it's just 0 down there. So if anyone thinks about it, let me know. But yeah. So I don't know off the top of my head if you can do that by default so that it runs. But I will say that I think it's such a non-important thing, right? I mean, it's one of those things where, we should be striving to use the 3D models more than striving to get the 3D models to look like the documents from the 2D program AutoCAD. That's just kind of my thoughts on it. Didn't mean to go on too much of a rant there, but hey, you guys are watching, so let's do it. Circular stair, I already answered that one. Ed asked about how do you filter model groups and filter them by some shared instance parameter. We can get into that next week, but I guess since you asked it, I do believe there are a way to filter model groups, different ways to filter model groups. So this is group 1. Model groups themselves have, I think you can make, pretty sure you can make a parameter that lets you do it. If not, I think you can just use group name. So let me just double check. Woo. All my windows are popping up on the left, so I apologize as I drag everything. I was clearly working on Revit on the other monitor before all this. The groups aren't in there. So I do believe there is a way. I just have to remember. That may be something that we can pick up with Aaron next week, since we'll be talking on the subject of model groups, or of filters, I should say. I just wanted to see if there's any way to do a model groups. Oh, there's model groups. Did I miss it? I just think I rolled right past it. So what you can do is, I think you can create a global parameter for model groups, or you can do them by the group name. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going under filters. I'm typing VG on my keyboard to get the filters. Yeah. I do believe there is a way. But you can add global parameters to model groups, and so that's helpful. And then there's probably a way to do it through that way. But I was just doing all that without you guys seeing. So sorry, guys. It's okay. All I was doing was clicking through a bunch of filter stuff and dialogues, and it was honestly not very exciting. So Ed, thanks for the question. We'll bring it up, and we'll circle back to it next week with Aaron when we talk about actual filtering. Because I think there's, in my mind right now, there's like 2 ways I think I can approach it, but I don't know which one is probably the best one to show. So ML Sweeney just asked about parking garages and how cut planes and slopes are kind of messing with you, and honestly, that's a really, really, really difficult thing to handle. What I will say is that your best bet is to work with plan regions. For those of you that aren't familiar with what a plan region is, it lets you modify the cut distance of a specific area of a plan. So what I'll do, since you did ask the question about parking garages, is I'll draw 2 ramps here. So I'm just going to draw, I know this is not a parking garage ramp, but it's a ramp. And we'll draw it so that it's really long, 87 feet. Oh, nice. It's a long ramp. Okay. So actually, I probably, because it's a parking garage, you're probably using sloped floors. So let's do that instead. So we're going to do a floor here. I'm going to draw a slope arrow. And I'm going to make this thing slope 10 feet at the foot of it. And then I'm going to mirror this and rotate it or something at 180. Oops, or I'm going to modify the slope. And I'm going to go the other way. This is going to go up 10 feet, and this is going to be 0. Okay, so in 3D, what I just made, for those of you who want to know, so I just made these. Okay, so these are just two slope ramps. And so I think the question is, how can you control these to view correctly? And it's going to be really difficult depending on how your cut plane is. But what you could do is use what's called the plan region. So if I go to View, and I go to Plan Views, and I go to Plan Region, it's a couple clicks in there. What the Plan Region allows you to do is it's kind of like a scope box where you just draw the border of it. But what it allows you to do is it allows you to change the view range of just this piece of your plan. Okay, so if I click this now, you'll notice all I have, the option that I have is called the plan a view range. So if I click View Range, you'll see I can actually change the cut plane of this view. So if I want this to go up to 10 feet, and click Apply. That's above the top, of course. You can see now, just within this region, I'm actually cutting at 10 feet instead of 3'6". And so that may be enough to get you to what you need. And the nice thing about plan regions is that you can. I apologize if you guys hear that. Looks like they're finally taking a tree out that fell down last week. I hear chainsaws. You can actually modify the shape of these. So that may be your best bet for parking garages. Oh man, we're flying. It's already 1:15. You guys are nuts. This is awesome. All right, what do we got here? Lowercase in one, uppercase in the other, company standard thing. Well, there you go again. I still don't understand why you would ever want to see that. I'm very confused. Man, there's a ton of questions in here. You guys, I may have to hold some of these over for tonight and answer them. I don't know. Do you use let's see, man, I don't even know how far back I am. You guys, this is fantastic. If I don't answer your questions, feel free to shoot me an email or tweet at me, or join us tonight and ask the same question. Circular stairs are easier. Brody Scott said, if roads are a category in Revit, show me how to make one. That's funny. Default is above. So I think I tried to answer Saeed's question, so sorry about that. Here's an extra question you may be able to help with. Let's see, what do we got here? Ricardo asked, do I do anything with my line weights? I've actually never really touched the line weights out of default. I mean, I have other line types, and I manage them here and there. If you check out the last time that Aaron was on the show, which was a few episodes ago, he mentioned some interesting things about building a template and some of the line weights there. But I've actually never touched the default line weight area. I've just modified line types to suit me, basically. Justice asked about something with opaque. What does it say? In the newest 2020 updates, the text between the dimensions, it doesn't print opaque. I'm not really sure if that's a Revit issue, if that's a graphics issue for you, but I guess to answer, how to make them opaque, maybe your type's changed. If you go to Edit Type, I'm not sharing my screen again. If you go to Edit Type on Dimensions, right here under Text Background, it's opaque or transparent. Maybe something got defaulted there. The only other thing I can think of is if it's during printing. I've seen that happen where there's an issue with your graphics and the way it's printing. Let's see. I don't know if that answered your question, Justice, but I'm not really sure why that would happen. I have the most up-to-date, I think I'm on 2020.2, and my text seems to be working fine. If I was to turn shadows on or something, let's see. Let me turn shadows on. So there's my opaque text there. If I flip it to transparent, it should be transparent. Yeah. So, All right, let's see. Man, I am, Revit must look like AutoCAD. Gary, thanks. So Jeffrey asked about links coming in and scheduling them for quantities. So when you do have a link in your file, you do have the ability to schedule information from it. You have to check a little box. So I guess if I really wanted to real quick, I'll link in a file, just a random file. Let's see here. Storage. So if I link in this file and I create a schedule, so there's a file there. Ooh, that looks good. I'm gonna make a new schedule and I'm gonna do a door schedule. I'm going to add the I don't remember if I used mark or type mark, but let's just do type mark and mark. And then we'll do family name or something like that. Right here, there's a little box. See, it says include elements in links. So if you check that box and click OK, it's actually going to pull in the information. So notice there's all these doors here. All my doors are only in the linked file right now. So you can pull elements from a link. As far as formulas, I'm pretty sure formulas work the same way, but I don't really have a formula right on top of the head that I could use, but hopefully that helps, Jeff. Scour just asked you can put a dot, or mentioned that you can put a dot in a schedule. Yes, Revit Pure. Nico over at Revit Pure put that tutorial together, how to add that solid dot in there. Let's see. Thank you for asking my question. Oh, no problem. And remember, if I answered your question here and I called you out, shoot me an email, jeff@TheRevitKid.com. Give you some special discount on BIM After Dark. Man, I can't believe how many questions you guys are asking. This is so cool. I'm also a big fan of working in 3D views for documentation. Yes, please use 3D as much as possible. So David asked, when do you think you'll be able to call out a 3D view from a floor plan, for example? I mean, technically you can if you're using Revit or something, right? There's ways to do it. If not, there's different programs and add-ins and plugins and stuff on the other side that let you combine the two. Let's see when I place it. Actually, this is an interesting question. So TTYL just asked, when he puts a column in on floor plan. Sorry, I'm just gonna reduce the shadows a little bit. I'm also gonna turn off this link. He wants the hatch to be the entire column and not pieces of the column or something of that nature. So what I'll do is just talk a little bit about that because I think it's an interesting topic. So right now, if I have CMU walls and I go to architecture column and I put in a rectangular column, you'll notice the column is actually taking the whole wall for the material and the way it looks. If you go into that column, remember this is an architectural column, this is not a structural column. So if I was to go in and do a structural column, of course, I don't have one that will take the material, so let me go to structural columns. Let me go to concrete, rectangular, whatever. Okay, I was to place it in, and it goes below my walls because, that's just how it is. So let's do up to level 2. You notice that one stays concrete, right? Meanwhile, the architecture one, blended in with it. And that's kind of the way architecture column versus structural columns work. And what you can do is, I believe, if you were to assign a material to this architectural column, there was my materials box way over there. Oh, it's I'm in course. So I think what you're talking about is how the architecture column inherits the wall that it's attached to, and that's because you're using the architecture column. If you want control over that, then you have to use a different column type. And so what you see there is it's actually taking on the characteristics of it, which is kind of goofy too, because you'll notice in here the actual material I changed it to brick, but the cut material is not. So that's a category thing, as far as I know. So I don't know if that answers your question, but hopefully it explains what's happening to you a little bit. All right, so it's 122. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue reading through this, but I think right now we should probably just cut the questions or save them, because I don't think I'm going to get through all of them at all, and then use them all tonight. But I do see a few more questions, so I want to try and run through these a little bit. Let's see here. I use floor as a ramp. Yep, awesome. So Ruben said he's been trying to find a way to get inline text dimensions for years and haven't found a solution. I don't see the point. You're saying that it would save some space when you're drawing, but I mean, really, you can make room for dimensions, guys. Come on. And if you really want to, you can just move them for that one little view in detail. I don't know. I don't think it's I don't think it's an important piece. And from what I can tell, you can't physically set it up that way. You can move them though, and just turn off the leaders, and you're good to go. You guys are discussing ramps versus floors, so enjoy that discussion. Let's see. A couple people. Chris is responding to CAD standard versus use the model, but the reality is we still need to produce the same documents from CAD. No, I don't agree with that. You're not. No one out there is saying that you need to produce documents to look like CAD. You're just right now the contracts are saying you need to produce documents, right? So no, dimensions. Showing a dimension in a line or outside of a line has nothing to do with the contract, right? So no, I don't fully agree with that, and I don't fully agree with forcing things to happen to look like the way they did in CAD. No, not buying it. Oh, Tim just mentioned for the concrete, the concrete column that I was talking about. Good point. I just had a brain fart. Thank you, Tim, very much. Let me show you guys how that happens. If I go over to screen and camera. So the reason why this family is doing this column family, is if you go into the family type, over here under properties, there's a checkbox that says automatically joins geometry to walls. And so if you uncheck that and load it in, it won't do that crazy automatically join thing. It shouldn't do that, at least, depending on the type. There we go. So now you can see it's not automatically doing it. So I don't think every family category has that option, but great point there. Go to Edit Family and turn off automatically join to wall by type. So Chris just gave me an example of why he would use lowercase and uppercase. So Chris, I'm still not 100% sure what you're saying. So Revit text is annotative. So if you shrink the view, the room name is going to shrink. It's always going to be 330 seconds tall. So I don't know, uppercase versus lowercase versus size is a whole nother thing. So as I mentioned before, one of the nice things about Revit is that you don't need to have the CAD way of having a 48 or 96 or all these different size text. That doesn't need to happen in Revit, right? So right now this view is 1/8 inch. If I go down to 1/4 inch, look at my text shrinks automatically. If I go down to 1 inch, it shrinks automatically. You don't need to have a room tag for the scale. So I'm not really. So hopefully that's a little helpful too. Can you do a session on BIM for interiors? Sure. I would love to. I think of a couple people that may have some things to say on that. I can speak my mind on rendering interiors and the architecture side of it, but if anyone out there is extremely experienced and has a lot to show in interior design for Revit, shoot me an email. I'd love to set it up because I do find that to be a fascinating piece of it, and I've been involved in plenty of projects trying to help set those things up. So my most experience with it is setting up some standards and working with interior designers to set those up. But man, I'd be happy to have anyone on who wants to talk about interior design, because I do think that's an extremely unique piece of using Revit. Awesome. All right. Looks like the chat finally slowed down. I know I told you to, but thank you so much. This was fantastic. So again, if this is your first time here, make sure that you, hey, there's it is. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. I've been trying to add subscription or add subscribers and get to. I've actually been trying to get to 60,000 for the year. We've been rolling up pretty quickly, which is awesome. So subscribe to the channel. You'll get notifications when I go live. Also check me out at TheRevitKid.com. Thank you so much. If I answer your question, shoot me an email, Jeff at TheRevitKid, and I'll give you a discount code to the BIM After Dark community. I know this was. I'm sorry if I didn't get to your question. I was not anticipating the influx of questions, which was freaking cool, I have to say. I unfortunately have to get back to work. And then I'll be on again tonight at 7:30 doing the same thing. We'll see how many influx of questions we get there. And then, again, reach out to me. I'm pretty open. And at TheRevitKid on Twitter is one good way, or Jeff at TheRevitKid. So I'm just checking the chat to make sure we got anything else going on here. Thank you guys all so much for joining me. This was really cool. And yeah, I think that's it. Sweet. All right. So hopefully I'll see you guys tonight at 7:30. If not, I'll see you next week at 7:30. Again, check out all the content. Thank you for joining me. You guys are awesome. Stay safe. And I'll see everyone soon. So thank you so much.